The greatest live stream series in Fire Emblem history returns with Fire Emblem Co-op. What is Fire Emblem Co-op, you say? Imagine it as Fire Emblem, but you can play with your friends. Actually, even better, you can play against your friends, but together. For those of you who know, Fire Emblem Co-op has returned. It has returned for the last 2 weeks already. I'm a little bit late to the punch, but this is a weekly series of videos covering my favorite collaboration streams related to Fire Emblem. If you already know, you can skip ahead to the timestamp on screen and get right into the action. I'm going to be recapping the draft and the first week in this video. But for those of you who might be new here or need a refresher or want to see the new rules, I'll go ahead and explain. Every week on Speedy channel, he, JAIK, and myself will be playing Fire Emblem Co-op Fridays, 9 p.m. EST, don't miss it. We are going to be drafting separate armies that each one of us is going to use individually, and we're going to share the deployment slots and try to clear the game. We're going to sabotage each other in the process, and basically try and win through an intricate scoring process, all of which is going to be documented in the description below. The rules will also be on the screen and in the description, so if you don't want to listen to me ramble or talk a little bit, you can just read it and that should be clearer for you. I also just don't want to needlessly extend the video runtime. Now let's get to the rules. The main one and the most difficult portion of this game, at least the first third of it, is that Titania is banned. We did this in Sacred Stones and we banned Seth, and honestly it was far more entertaining because of it. What it boils down to is we're going to be taking turns moving our units. Last place will go first, and then in that order, we will move accordingly. Whoever clears the map objective will get a nice chunk of points, and we're all going to get individual sabotages that refresh on Chapter 10 and Chapter 18, and you're only going to be able to hold one of them at a time. This is the biggest entertainment factor in this series. The sabotages are always massive and pivotal and run-altering. If you haven't seen them yet, my recap videos on Fire Emblem 7, mostly complete, and Fire Emblem 8, fully complete, are there, and you can see kind of what we get up to in terms of our sabotages and playing against each other. A quick example is, let's say we're getting late in the game and I just want to kill off one of Speedy's units to give him the negative reduction. I could just decide to say sabotage, move his bastion into a middle of a pack of units, and have him die. It's that simple. We can also force rescue units, take items via trade, or just move someone out of the way. You can basically do anything you want, within limits, of course. The stream chat, and I guess some of the commenters, will have me being the conniving villain of the series, but trust me, I'm not the only one, even if they are more innocent than I am. Or seemingly more innocent than I am, you'll be surprised what they can get up to. Last but not least of these important rules, since we only have one Lord, Ike will be controlled by the last place player at all times. There are a lot of other little mini intricacies like how bonus EXP gets distributed and like chat MVP votes and stuff like that, but I'll let you go through the rule set on your own time. Like I said, every Friday 9 p.m. EST on Speedy's channel, I will leave a link below, as well as a link to the VOD playlist that will get continuously updated for people who can't make it. These recap videos will also come every Friday, hopefully around noon EST, as a recap and preparation for the episode at the same day. Now let's get to the fun part and talk about the draft. But a little bit of backstory. Back in the day, I used to do yearly clears of Path of Radiance, from basically when it came out until 2011, so I probably beat it like a good 10 times or so. After that, I kind of just stopped playing it. I didn't have as much time, I got really busy, and I started to get into other games on the side. So it's been about 15 years, and I'm a little bit rusty on all of the details of Path of Radiance. And I don't know who to pick. I haven't done any of my research prior to this. The one thing I do know is that previous co-op draft experience has told me that choosing red units is generally a bad idea because my so-called friends will probably kill them off and deny me recruitment. I've done it too, it's not just them. Green units can also be difficult, given that Ike is responsible for recruiting half the roster. Maybe being dependent on that is also not such a great idea. So I went into the draft with that mentality. The way the draft is decided is by a random wheel roll, and this wheel will be prominent in the series in the future as well. Speedy said the wheel roll was random, but it so happened to let him go first, me second, and Jay third, which is the exact same way that his Photoshop sheet is arranged. The wheel also wasn't visible on our screens either. No, I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure it was random. I just wanted to give him a little bit of shit for it. In any case, he goes first, I go second, and Jay goes third. It is a snake draft, so whoever goes last gets 2 picks, and the middle person will go in between each one of the top 2, or the top and bottom person, I guess. Honestly, I hate going in the middle. The first pick, hands down, gets the best unit in the draft, which is Oscar, and Speedy takes him immediately off the table. And you kind of need to capitalize on early game availability because the first third of the game is basically just the Grail mercenaries, and then you start to get more units. So I took Boyd. I mean, it was pretty much a no-brainer. He's available from the very first chapter, and he's a pretty solid unit all around. He sometimes has some issues getting going early on, say if he gets a little bit strength screwed or speed screwed, but I've generally had pretty decent luck with him, so I like my chances and I took him. Jay's first pair of picks was kind of questionable. He went for Mist, which I get it. Jay likes to have healers and healing monopoly. He made that clear in FE7. He also, I think, had a couple of them in FE8. But Reese is right there, and he's also available from the second chapter, so I don't understand why he wouldn't have gone, even if he wanted the healers, Reese and Mist. He did make a good choice, which is Marcia with Mist, and that's pretty good, but she is very contingent on Ike, who needs to talk to her in both Chapter 3 and 9. If you miss either one of the conversations, you don't get her recruitment. Because the vote comes back to me, and because of my philosophy, I just take Reese. I figured Boyd being on the front lines, kind of a squishy-ish fighter with a lot of HP, will need some healing to back him up, so that's what I went with. It goes back to Speedy, and this is where he gets his massive momentum swing. He already has Oscar, he takes Gatry, which is just an incredible early game pick for the chapters he's available in, and even when he comes back, he's still very, very solid. And then he gets Volk, which is the best thief. History says that thieves are very impactful in co-op because the way it works is basically your inventory is yours, and so anything that a thief steals is yours and is not shared with anyone else. And then being able to have that utility unimpacted is massive. When the vote comes back to me, I just steal Soren. That means I have a pretty good trifecta of high availability Grail mercenaries to start out with. I have my frontliner in Boyd, I have my person who's doing chip shots from the back in Soren, and I have my healer in Reese. Again, they're both super RNG dependent, and they both have very slow starts, but I feel like I can kind of make it work here. At this point, the phase 1 of the draft is almost complete, and I guess I didn't touch on this, but to be clear, we have to go through all of phase 1 to make sure that everyone has the early game units relatively evenly distributed before we can start with the units in phase 2, just to make it fair. Jay grabs Mordecai and Mia, which are 2 solid picks. I steal Leith. Speedy gets Rolf and Ileana, leaving me with Shannon, who honestly isn't the best, has the toughest recruitment, is gone for a significant portion of the game, but isn't a terrible idea to have, again, for the couple chapters that he's available. I'm pretty happy with phase 1 of the draft. I'm severely lacking here in terms of movement, but given that Titania is banned, basically the only other competition is Oscar, so I like my chances for the most part. Now, phase 2 is where it gets interesting, because we have Jay starting off phase 2 with 2 picks, which honestly is kind of fair. He went last in the draft, so he gets to start off phase 2 with 2 picks. But there's also some units that I clearly need. Again, like I just mentioned, I'm lacking in movement. And so the main pick, the main highlight that I have my eye dead set on, that I'm praying that Jay doesn't pick, is Kieran. He's a cav, he starts with solid bases, he grows really well throughout the game if you are able to feel him some kills and get him rolling. But in order to do that, I need to be able to draft him and recruit him. Jay gets first pick here, fair enough. And lucky for me, he actually goes for Jill and Tanith. It seems like he's trying to complete some sort of flyer monopoly of sorts. They're actually really good in this game, and Jill is pretty notorious for pretty much soloing entire maps on her own, but she also needs to be recruited in order to do that, and she is a red unit on a map before the map she can be recruited on, which Speedy very interestingly brings up. So, we'll see. Better hope she stays alive to be recruited. The Black Knight does kind of deter you from staying in that spot during the map anyways, since he shows up there, so I don't know. I kind of like Jay's chances of recruiting her, and if he ends up getting Marcia too, then this low early game stocks that he has, basically not having a player unit until Chapter 7, he might get a big boost in the mid to late game. Luckily for me, this does then free up Kieran for me to grab, which I'm super happy about, and honestly, if I get no one else, I think this core can probably carry an entire run. Though I will need some contingency plans because sabotages happen, RNG happens, units will die. Speedy grabs Nephany and Astrid, 2 very solid picks, but units that are going to require some high investment to get going. Bonus EXP does tend to help with that level of investment. It helps you catch up a unit that you might get late or a unit that's falling behind. So again, I wouldn't be too worried about that either. But now, coming back to me, I have to make a really, really tough decision. If you noticed, Rayson is there, and he's got this little angelic halo around his portrait. There's a reason for that. And there's a reason he's honestly still on the board because of how impactful dancers are. During the draft rules, we decided that Rayson should be worth 2 draft turns because, again, when he's transformed, he can refresh 4 units at one time. Having said that, if I take Rayson here, I'm missing my current turn and my turn after Jay drafts, which means I'm going to lose out on 2 units there and 2 units from Speedy and be 4 entire units behind in the draft. It also means that any remaining good units on the board are going to be off the board before I can even go again. But because, like I mentioned, I'm feeling pretty good about my roster here, I decided I'm just going to take him anyways, even if I'm only taking him off the board for them to recruit him. There is also something to be said about Path of Radiance's cast. It's really balanced, and most of the things left over are pretty tough to really get rolling. I mean, they're very heavily RNG dependent, or they're reliant on their bases, or have just late game recruitment and not fantastic utility. We do end up trading blows for the most part, and I won't labor on about the decisions. I don't think it was that deep for most of these units. Some personal attachments, some just trying to please some fans, but I end up getting Zehark and Braum, which is decent if I decide to invest in them, and I managed to snag Stefan, who is a personal favorite of mine and one of the people who carried me through my very first run of Path of Radiance. Speedy gets some good but mostly mid-tier lunets like Khalil, Largo. Har can be pretty good late game as well. Jay snags Joffrey, who's actually huge in the late game. It's a really smart pick by Jay. And Taronio, who has some really good potential, but is also a late game recruit that's a general, so it's hard for him to keep up. And that was pretty much it for the draft. That's a wrap. Let me know how you guys thought I did, or how you thought everyone else did, and who you think is going to have the winning roster. And let's talk about the first stream itself. So I said earlier that I have very little memory of Path of Radiance, but what little memory I have is very deeply embedded into my core memories, and that's that we get a very early Speedwing in Chapter 2. This Speedwing almost always went on Boyd or Soren because they need that extra help and have relatively lower speed growths. I figure I'm going to absolutely need that, and in order to guarantee it, I kind of have to look at my roster. In Chapter 2, I do have Boyd and Reese, which is decent, and it's basically half of the roster at that point since Titania isn't able to be used. But for me to guarantee the boss kill, I'm either going to have to get super blessed on Boyd's speed growths, which probably isn't going to happen, or I'd have to have Ike. The tricky part is, for me to have Ike, I need to make sure I'm in 3rd place at the end of Chapter 1. It really only gives me 1 chapter to get into the end, and I would basically just have to do nothing with Boyd, or at least pretend to do nothing, which is not very ideal. One thing I knew for sure is that Jay's actually not going to be in last place at the end of this chapter because Ike is just so dominant, being a sword user and most of the units being axe users. And Speedy has Oscar, who's good against the few sword units that are in the game, but he also just doubles all of the other brigands. So I like my chances, but I have to watch it. Funny enough, Jay does end up winning that chapter by a landslide. I mean, he ended with 10 points. And Speedy and I were tied for last place with 0 points. None of us leveled up any units, and Jay just basically got almost all of the kills, the boss kill, and the objective. This means that Jay not having any units until Chapter 7 actually sits out the chapter once Ike rotates off of him. And because Speedy just had the solo Oscar and I had the solo Boyd, there's some arguments to be said about who is in last place, considering that I get Reese. Oscar being level 3, having better bases and more EXP than Boyd, I think we felt that it was fair that I would go in last place, which I was happy about. Chapter 2 does have to be very cooperative anyways, especially without Titania. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. You have enemies right above you and enemies rushing down from your right, so you can get pincered if you're not careful. So Speedy and I agreed to cooperate. That's the name of the series, which I wasn't against at all. We basically ended up doing that. We were very boring. We took our time getting through the map, and we ended up having a little bit of a standoff at the end of the map with the boss kill. Obviously, Oscar doesn't do too hot with a lance, not doubling and taking a lot of damage from the boss, so he ended up retreating eventually, and I get to secure the kill. What was super important, though, was that I 100% was going to lose control of Ike to Speedy at the end of this map. And so if Ike kills the boss, Speedy gets the Speedwing, and I don't want that, so I have to get it with Boyd. I ended up cornering the boss with Boyd on one side, Reese on the other side, and Boyd does end up getting the kill, and I get the Speedwing. So that is fantastic. I would have to wait a little bit, however, because I'm not able to use Boyd again for another couple chapters, because the next chapter is just Ike, Shannon, and Gatry as we go to chapter 3. There really wasn't anything interesting here aside from the fact that I had no recollection that, one, apparently there's an invisible line that spawns Marcia if you cross it. Again, I had absolutely no idea. Egg on my face for not knowing early game Path of Radiance mechanics off by heart. And then Shannon also has Provoke, which I had not thought to check. So those two things kind of impacted my gameplay. Not that I really cared about what happened in this chapter since I only had the one unit and Speedy had Gatry and Ike, but the chat finished laughing at me. Marcia dodge tanked everything, and all's well that ended well, even though Speedy did hesitate a little bit before talking to her with Ike, and we completed the chapter with very few problems. I can't say the same about chapter 4 though, and it was a little bit of a doozy. Once again, without using Titania, this map turns into an absolute nightmare. But a good thing is we have Gatry, so he ends up soloing most of it, and Speedy basically just takes all the load, and we still don't have Boyd or Oscar back. I got Soren in this map, who was mostly useless since he dies if anything breathes on him, and I'd rather he not. And so I ended up sitting in the top right corner, letting Speedy do most of the work, and I picked off some stragglers as they came. Thankfully, Speedy was nice enough to not just dash back with Gatry and lure the entire pack to get my entire army killed, otherwise I really just would have been in a tough spot. Eventually, we managed to hack and slash and dink and dunk our way through the entire map, and I actually ended up getting the boss kill and a javelin on Soren, so that was nice. With Chapter 5, it's basically the same group, but a nighttime tanking. We do get Boyd and Oscar back, so we have everyone, and Jay gets to control Ike again. Though, because of the way the positioning was done, he basically didn't get to do anything the entire map again for the third time in the row. He was mostly just cheerleader Ike cheering us on from the back. Speedy ended up defending the south exit with Oscar and Gatry, while I took the west with all of my 4 units. I haven't really mentioned this, but my god, is Boyd driving me crazy with these hit rates. I mean, they're 70s and 80s, which isn't terrible, especially with 2RN, but it's just like he just misses all of them, even with positive biorhythm and Tempest. I can't wait to get rid of it so that I'm not as negatively impacted by the negative one. I know it's only 5%, but it's getting to my head here. Shannon was actually fantastic here, since he's both able to frontline tank and also pick off distant enemies, and I got a couple levels here for Soren and Boyd, who leveled up actually pretty well for the early game. They were pretty blessed here. Gatry continued to absolutely dominate on the south side of the map, and Oscar actually got some kills and a little bit of XP here. Tragically, though, he's kind of falling behind. I mean, he's not blessed, but he's not completely cursed, but he's not doing well for the early game, and one of his level ups was basically a single point of resistance, which is just, you hate to see it. Even for someone who's playing against me, you still hate to see it. It's painful. I sympathize. The last chapter we played during the stream was Chapter 6, which is another super hard one without Titania. Again, this is becoming a bit of a theme. Though oddly enough, we actually didn't really have a problem with it, and the cards just kind of fell into place. Speedy said he wanted to send it and rush down. His only unit was Oscar, so I don't know what he's sending it and rushing down with, but, so be it. Jay went ahead and went with it, and you know what? I said, screw it, I'll do it too. We immediately clashed into the soldiers on the right side. The Cavs came up and the Mage came up, and with a little bit of coordination, we managed to kill most of them off with very little damage taken. After that, Speedy insisted that he try and go back to the left on his own with Oscar, which, I mean, fine, so be it, and Jay and I pretty much collaborated in chopping down the entire right side of the map, and then eventually had to loop back and save Speedy's Oscar because all of the enemies swarmed him there and he got overwhelmed, again, because he wasn't growing very well. We then end up taking out the boss with ease, and Jay secures the kill with Ike. We all agreed that we should just escape with everyone, get that bonus EXP, and distribute it, because it's really not that much, it's just 50 extra. Overall, I ended up in the lead here at the end of the episode by virtue of the fact that I simply have more units than everyone else, and so more level up and kill economy. Speedy wasn't too far behind with his Gatry dominance in those early maps. I had 44 points, I think Speedy had 38, and then Jay was in last with 34, so he's only 10 points behind, which isn't bad, and that's just because of how dominant Ike is in the early game and how well he leveled up. This Ike is also strangely defense blessed. I mean, he's almost as tanky as Gatry, for crying out loud, and he's unkillable, which, I mean, it's good for the rest of the run. If anything, if all our units die catastrophically, this could just turn into an Ike solo. Otherwise, this first stream was rather tame overall, but I think it's just because, the roster is very weak, and we kind of need to collaborate, and any unit that dies, especially the big three in Boyd, Ike, and Oscar, if any of those 3 die, we're going to have a terrible time in Chapter 8. I mean, you already kind of need to use Titania to leverage that unless you're a good player. We're on hard mode, and so losing any 3 of our frontliners that could potentially tank the choke points it would be catastrophic. And so I think we all recognize that. We wanted to keep the stream going for at least more than 1 week, and we kind of agreed to let things settle down a little bit. But the next week, we're gonna get through chapter 7 and 8. The sabotage is reset in chapter 10. Some people are gonna have to start letting those sabotages fly. I may or may not have a small idea, but that is a story for next time. And I will see you all in the next video. It will be on Friday. I know this one was a little bit late, so earlier in the week, so you guys get 2 videos this week. And then hopefully, if you're able to come on the stream on Fridays at 9 p.m. EST, Speedy Hawk's channel link in the description below, and I appreciate you all very much. And see you all in another video very soon. Peace.